So this is what I would have called my Magic deck in 2018. And this is what I would call my Magic deck today in 2025. Both decks speak to the design philosophy of Magic during their respective eras, and to the ever-changing and evolving nature of the world's most successful trading card game. The deck from 2018 is the modern format's Jeskai Geist, a variant of the steadfast Jeskai control deck that had been present in the modern metagame since its early days. The deck, while sharing some similarity with control decks of today, presented a playstyle unique to the era before Fire design. We'll get to what that is later. Here you will find no planeswalkers, single card value engines, or oppressive early game card advantage. Victories with the Jeskai deck were won with incremental gains off of late game powerhouses like Cryptic Command and Snapcaster Mage. These Swiss Army knives afforded Jeskai players complex decision trees that allowed for truly expressive and skillful gameplay. To navigate into this late game, players had to expertly manage early game interaction pieces like Lightning Bolt and Logic Knot. Incorrect sequencing or threat assessment could be disastrous. I remember the first time I tried to Lightning Bolt a Tarmogoyf with no instants in the graveyard. That's not a mistake you have to make more than once. In a lot of ways, I would have described competitive Magic at this time as chess-like. Knowing your deck's most common playlines into the plethora of meta-viable strategies would be what made the difference between winning that week's F&M or going home without any prizes in hand. You studied, and you practiced, and you played the game because the goal was simple. You wanted to win.
Top of the deck. What is on top of the deck? Oh, it's Raging Helix! Oh my god!
Well, the way he's tapping that mana, it is Anger of the Gods. That is a... Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, that's a very confident spell, Pierce, as he will attack Wizard's Light. Is that game?
Yeah. Still just offering the trade, but...
Yeah, so now he has to just use...
Wow, that was awesome.
Wow!
Go guard time. I didn't see that in his hand. That was awesome, bro.
At this time, Magic the Gathering was first and foremost a competitive game. Winning required the sequencing and tactical skill of games like chess.
Flame Rift.
Gutsy. I like that.
Always gutsy.
Patrick Sullivan is nothing if not gutsy.
He's gonna pass back.
Oh my god, if he taps out to... Oh! Wow! Patrick
Flame Rift Fire.
Oh my god. Unbelievable.
It required the bluffs and reads of games like poker.
Now Jeremy's going to take a moment to line up the perceived blocks. Look at Luis, he's grabbed a vampire token. Can Luis lure Jeremy Dezani into the full attack here and get him with Settle the Wreckage? And there it is, Settle the Wreckage from Luis Scott Vargas, and he wins 3 games.
And of course, it never hurt to just be a little bit lucky.
And you gotta flip it though. No peeking. I gotta see too.
Snap it.
Good news! Gabriel the 6 survives 5 copies of Ignite Memories!
Tournament coverage of the SCG Tour, Grand Prix, and of course Pro Tour were all required reading material if you wanted to get good. And I think that's a defining thing of Magic during this era. Everyone aspired to be good. Magic was a competitive game, and the goal was winning. So this is my Magic deck of today. It's a Commander deck. Commander is quite a different format than Modern, or Standard, or Legacy, or Vintage, or Pioneer, or really any other constructed format that was at the center of Magic's design for the last 30 or so years. Rather uniquely, Commander is designed to be played in a multiplayer setting, often pitting somewhere between 3 to 5 players against each other in a free-for-all last man standing kind of showdown. When you're fighting against 3 other players, trading cards 1 for 1 is rather ill-advised. Your game plan must be proactive and accruing value every turn if you wish to be more than just simply observing the game helplessly from the sidelines. Sorry, Draw Go Magic players, but this is not the format for you. Otherwise, you have no real reason for concern. Wizards of the Coast has you covered. Commanders are often one-card advantage engines. For example, let's take a look at my Commander Yuriko. Not only does she draw me cards every turn, but she also deals damage to each of my opponents when I do so. Or my Commander Magda, who not only gets me cards, but she lets me put them into play for free. Or even my Commander Toski, who... well, he draws cards. That's about all he does. So the game's gone on a few turns, I have drawn all these cards, what am I now gonna do with them? If you're coming from another card game or any other format in the history of Magic the Gathering, A is the correct answer, but in Commander, it's actually the only wrong answer. If we take a look at these decks, while you may see some strong cards and a few different ways to close out the game eventually, what you'll notice is we are missing the most efficient game-ending playlines. But why would I leave these out? It's because Commander isn't anything like other Magic the Gathering formats we've discussed. Commander is not about winning. Commander is weirdly more of a format about self-expression. It's a place where players want to show off something cool that they've made and be able to play with their favorite cards forever. While eventually the game must come to an end, if it ends before everyone has had a chance to show off their thing, then those players who failed to do so will feel as if they've just simply wasted their time. And if they feel like you have made them waste their time, why would they want to keep playing Commander with you? It's for this reason that Commander is the only format with a system of measuring your deck's power so you can more accurately match up against other people with the same power level deck. For most Commander players, the format is a place to sit down and enjoy their cards in the company of others who are also enjoying their cards. Commander is much more like a build-your-own version of Monopoly or Life than it is like a game of chess or poker. Now let's go ahead and pump the brakes for a second so I can clarify a few things. I actually really like Commander. While I do have a lot to say on the downfall of competitive formats and how Commander is probably the first domino in a long series of events that have led us to, this. I'm not here to bash the way you enjoy playing Magic. For every competitive player who went to tournaments and strived for victory, I'm sure there were like 10 or 20 more kitchen table players just looking for an excuse to get a bunch of friends together with a game of free-for-all. But it's undeniable that Magic has changed drastically, even to the point now where casual-only Commander players are beginning to feel the effects of this change as well. So earlier when I was waxing poetic about the Magic days long past, I was really talking about the modern format, specifically from the years like 2015 through early 2019. This to me has always been where Magic peaked. In every aspect you can imagine, this game was cooking. Art, story, gameplay, accessibility, event turnout, coverage, design. The overall direction of the game was incredible. And don't get me wrong, there were maybe a few hiccups along the way. But for the most part, this was many people's ideal form of Magic the Gathering. Enter Fire Design. FIRE is an acronym that stands for fun, interesting, respectful, and engaging design. It is so far from any of these things. So the old flowchart for new Magic players looked something like this. For some reason, you would pick up one of the new sets of Magic. You'd either buy some packs or a starter deck, and you'd play some kitchen table games with friends. Some players would stay at this kind of kitchen table level forever. Others, however, would seek out a more competitive environment as they began to understand the game. This would lead them into Standard. Standard is a introductory level competitive format. It focuses only on the most recent cards, and older cards are eventually rotated out after a few years. You would purchase more product to get your small pool of kitchen table cards up to a competitive level for the Standard environment, where you would go to FNMs weekly and grind out games. Over time, your collection would slowly grow, and you would begin to understand more fundamental rules of Magic the Gathering, making yourself a better player along the way. Eventually, there would come a time where the cards you originally started this game with would see rotation. They would leave the competitive pool of cards in Standard. And for a time after this, you may continue to buy into new Standard product, picking up new sets, building new decks, focusing on the new things coming out released by Wizards of the Coast. But eventually, something happens. You get an itch to play with those first cards, those cards that got you into Magic the Gathering. Lucky for you, there's a format where you can do that. It's called Modern. Modern is like Standard, but way, way bigger, and it stretches all the way back to 8th edition with the promise that the cards will never rotate out. It's a place where you can play your cards forever. Suddenly, you're grinding tournaments again with the cards you used to build your fundamental understanding of how Magic works. And it's awesome, except there's one small problem. And it's not a problem for you, it's a problem for Wizards of the Coast. If you can play with your cards forever, why would you need to buy into new Wizards product if your old stuff is good enough to compete? Wizards realized they needed to find a way to incentivize the player bases of Modern and Legacy to purchase new product. Sets like Modern Masters had shown them these players were more than willing to spend money if the cards available to them were good enough. You see, often it was concern for the balance of Standard that prevented Wizards of the Coast from printing overpowered cards that could affect the eternal formats like Modern or Legacy. Overpowered cards that would force players of these older formats to buy into new product. Most Standard sets would see maybe 1 or 2 cards that would find their way into formats like Modern, but with Fire Design, Standard sets saw a drastic and unchecked spike in power level. These new sets, under the Fire Design philosophy, would flood Modern with overpowered cards, changing the format known for its consistency into a pseudo-rotating format practically overnight. While cards like Arclight Phoenix and Oko Thief of Crowns would get players buying new product, Wizards wanted to go even deeper into the pockets of Eternal players. Wizards of the Coast had already proven to themselves that direct-to-format printings were an easy way to move product. the Commander Precons were a hit and would fly off store shelves. These decks provided new cards for Commander players and easily bypassed Standard, allowing them to keep the format in some semblance of balance. If they could find a way to do the same thing with Modern, then they would be able to safely insulate Standard from some of the wilder designs implemented by R&D. In June of 2019, Modern Horizons would hit store shelves. Within only a matter of weeks, Magic's most cherished competitive format would be gone forever. Right out of the gate, cards like Hogak would bend the format to its will, while 2 months later, Hogak Arisen Necropolis would receive a banning. It was a sign that clearly Wizards' play design team had missed something crucial, and it wasn't just this one-off incident. Fire Design had set fire to much of what I cherished most about Magic as a competitive game, and the incoming pandemic would do even more to forever destroy what remained of my favorite format. Like many companies during the pandemic, Hasbro, the parent company of Wizards of the Coast, took a severe financial hit. There is no doubt in my mind that this downturn forced them to assess where they could be squeezing their brands for more money, and unfortunately, their eyes fell firmly upon Magic the Gathering. More direct-to-modern sets would be put into print, drastically warping the format again. By the time I returned to Magic play after COVID, I couldn't even recognize the format I had left behind. The cards I had spent precious time and money collecting and trading for with the promise of eternal play were now effectively useless. My Cryptic Commands and Geist of St. Traft, which had been soundly at home in Modern since at least as early as 2012, no longer had a home in the one format I could play them in competitively. The cards that Modern had promised I could play forever were no longer viable, deliberately pushed to the side by Wizards of the Coast. Most of the people I knew who played Modern sold out of the format around that time. Our cards could no longer compete, and we were hesitant to buy into new powerhouses like Ragavan in fear that they too would soon be supplanted by another Horizon set. Even though Modern was no longer a format for us, there was still somewhere we could play our cards: Commander. It is truly the king of casual formats. At the time, a practically non-existent ban list allowed you to play with whatever cards you really wanted, and whatever playstyle you could really imagine. The only real pain point was coming to terms with the fact that Commander is not a format about winning. I have always had a competitive spirit, so setting that aside was very difficult. If you focus too hard on winning, people get upset and don't want to play with you. This can be hard to grasp, and many Commander players seem blissfully unaware of this pseudo-unspoken rule. To be honest, it took me a long time to really figure that out, and even still I struggle with tuning decks to not just fly out the gate swinging. It was only because of my consistent playgroup's willingness to sit down and discuss the kind of Commander games we want that we were able to put together a diverse and interesting meta, where it felt like any of our decks had a fair shot at winning and everybody really got a chance to do their thing. While it really couldn't scratch my competitive itch for Magic, it was still a place I could express myself creatively through deck building. Building decks for Commander when you have a clear outline of what everyone's expected power level is can be a lot of fun. Every part of the process has always intrigued me, from card art and themes to mana curve and power balancing. It's like an infinite puzzle that never really ends with no clear answer. I'm realizing now some of you may not find that as exciting as I do, but I think it's pretty cool. Slowly, Commander became my primary focus in Magic, and I noticed for others it was becoming the same. As competitive formats priced out new and existing players alike, many of us flocked to the allure of Commander's make whatever you want out of it kind of attitude. Wizards obviously took note of this as well. Seeing that their game was beginning to steer heavily in the direction of casual play, I think they interpreted this as being what Magic's most dedicated players really desired most. Commander product production skyrocketed. In 2020, Wizards would release new Commander precons alongside every single standard legal set going forward. Deck power levels, already a point of confusion for Commander players, became even more unintuitive as precons would come stock with $40 or $50 power cards. Despite this, Commander continued to march on. With cards all being singleton in the format, individually powerful cards would rarely warp low power tables enough for anyone to really notice or care. Unfortunately, but slowly and surely, competitive FNMs in cities across the US would phase out Modern, Standard, and Legacy in favor of Commander. There was once a time I could go to 4 or 5 different stores in Columbus for Modern FNMs. That's not even mentioning the other 6 days a week at various stores were running events that I could play in. But after the pandemic, it was difficult to find even 2 stores running Modern on a Friday night. Most places had shifted to open Commander play. This was now what the gathering part of Magic the Gathering meant. And I don't think it's for me. Most Commander games are strictly casual, and the few that aren't personally don't really scratch that same competitive itch that something like Modern or other 60-card formats did. The skill set can be quite different, and the deck archetypes tend to fall into just exclusively stacks and combo, neither of which I'm really interested in a competitive sense. But that is simply the nature of multiplayer competitive Magic. So even then, if I was feeling like playing some casual, non-competitive Magic at these FNMs, they are a nightmare. The nuance of balancing a commander pod to create a fun and interesting game is incredibly difficult. It took my primary pod a few years to find our sweet spot, and you simply can't achieve that level of communication with strangers you'll be playing the game with only a handful of times. I can't count how many games I have sat down with strangers who want to play their power level 6 or 7 deck, only to have them roll out an infinite combo on turn 2 or 3. Or how many times I've cast Force of Will, targeting an opponent's 6+ mana monstrosity they're trying to cast on like turn 2 in our power level 7 game, only for them to retort, "Oh, I didn't know we were playing CEDH now." Because for some reason, most Commander players associate interaction with CEDH. Interaction is a part of Magic. It's called playing around it. Get good. Ah! The new bracket system I think will help alleviate this problem to some degree, but I still think it has a long way to go before it can truly shape the way open Commander play events work. So you don't like Commander, why don't you just go back to Modern or try Legacy or something? If the answer was that simple, I wouldn't be making this video. I did try that. I bought into Modern Horizons 2 cards, ready to give that version of what was once my favorite format an honest shot, only to have it all upended by Modern Horizons 3 a couple months later. That was my breaking point. I finally had accepted that competitive Magic was no longer for me. I decided if I wasn't going to be playing with my competitive cards anymore, it would be a good time to sell or consolidate them into something else. While I didn't really enjoy going to FNMs for Commander, I did still rather like my group's near weekly Commander night. Our same few decks had all been playing against each other for years at this point, and the group was relatively balanced, and the games were a lot of fun. I was one of the last holdouts on some key Commander staples the others had been playing with that I hadn't yet picked up. They were expensive enough I would never have bought them out of pocket, but to trade in for them seemed very doable. So I picked up Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus. Commander being a casual singleton format meant that these cards were safe from being power crept away, and being colorless, I could play them in all of my decks. Commander was by no means perfect, but at the very least, it was a place I could play my Magic cards forever. My Commander group hasn't really played much since then. Many of them have a very similar story to mine. This was the final event that shattered whatever remaining hope we had that Magic would be a place for players like us. I don't really feel the need to comment on the events of what happened with the RC. What I will comment on are the events that transpired after. The new Rules Committee has taken some real steps with the new bracket system to help alleviate a lot of the weird social pressures and frictions that would occur with Commander FNM. To be honest, I don't think the bracket has been pushed far enough in some respects, and more cards could definitely be added to the Game Changer list. I'm also of the belief that cards like Force of Will and other interactive pieces should be removed from the list entirely. They have done a lot right in the wake of the gross incompetence that destroyed my faith and the faith of so many others in not only Commander as a format, but Magic as a game. I'm still extremely disappointed in their refusal to unban Crypt and Lotus, and even maintain a ban list at all. I think a multi-tiered version of the Game Changer list and the bracket system has full potential to replace the completely nonsensical Commander ban list that should have been done away with years ago. Commander was the place I went to retire my collection, because I thought, like I once did with Modern, it was somewhere I could be allowed to play my cards forever. But yet again, Wizards of the Coast has found a way to try and take even more from players like me. Recently, I started rebuilding my competitive Modern deck that I had the most success with back around 2018. There's me, top 16 in an SCG Classic. It's nothing huge. I remember I was one game away from making top 8, lost in game 3 to an Alted Karn Liberated. Tron was a rough matchup for my deck. I started putting this back together not because I have an aspiration of playing it. The format I once loved is now very dead. But because this was the one thing Wizards can't take away from me. The memories of the late nights at Steak and Shake where one of my friends helped me learn how to play this deck. The weekly events at Soldiery, Guard Tower, or Comic Town if I was feeling brave. The familiar faces I would see week after week piloting their own favorite decks. The way I studied the great Jeskai games of players like Jonathan Rossum and Benjamin Nikolic as they piloted their own versions of the deck through the SCG Tour. And most importantly, the fun and the joy of getting to hang out with my friends a few times a week in those tiny card stores, hunched over a table, shuffling cards in our hands as we put everything on the line to win that extra pack of whatever random surplus the store happened to have that week. Magic has without a doubt changed. If you love the way Magic is now, then genuinely, I'm happy for you. I hope the game brings you the same joy it was once able to bring me. It really has been a long time coming, but I'm finally ready to fully say it. This is my goodbye to competitive Magic. I'll go ahead and move to my end phase, and I'll pass the turn over to you. but actually I'm going to pause you during your upkeep. I have a response. I was originally gonna end this video on that sad, somber note of, oh, Magic is dead, woe is me, my hobby is gone forever, because it kind of is, and it is sad. I'm still mourning the loss of Magic. I spent a lot of time playing this game. It was, without question, my favorite game of all time for the last 10 years, but it is no longer the game I fell in love with. So rather than just be sad and sorry for myself, I decided to do something I hadn't done in a long time, not since I left Yu-Gi-Oh! To come to Magic. I was going to start playing a new card game. It was on a whim that I walked into my LGS and I saw something sit on the shelf, something I didn't expect to see. It was a card game I had first taken note of a few years earlier, sometime around 2019, and I thought to myself, well, that's cool, but it'll be dead in 2 years. Because, you know, for the most part in the history of TCGs, outside of the big three, that is exactly what happens. Card games show up for 2 or 3 years and then get axed. So I was a little surprised to see sitting on that shelf, Flesh and Blood. These are the First Strike decks. It's their introductory product. They're like, I think, $10 a piece. I picked them up on a whim with a friend. We went home, we watched a video on how to play, and we played a game. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then we played another game, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another, and we played like the whole day. Each and every one of those games came down to like 1 life apiece. They were intense. Every decision mattered. Every point of life gained or lost would be the difference between winning. At the very least, I knew these starter decks were extremely well balanced against each other. And I was like, okay, there's something here. Maybe a month later, I turned on YouTube and I saw a live stream for Flesh and Blood, probably because I had searched up Flesh and Blood tutorials, so it's in my algorithm. And I clicked on the coverage, and to my surprise, what I was seeing was amazing. It reminded me of old Pro Tour coverage, old Grand Prix coverage, old SCG coverage. My God, they were perfect. And what Flesh and Blood was doing was essentially that. The casters were really intriguing, the way they talked about the game, the way they pulled you in, the way they explained just enough that a player like me who didn't know anything at the time could understand what was going on, or at least think I understood what was going on. It was really, really exciting. It was so exciting, in fact, that I went down to my LGS. I found a bulk bin of Magic cards, not Magic cards. I'm still getting over my ex. I found the bulk bin of Flesh and Blood cards. I sorted through it. I built a budget aggro deck. I would essentially equate it to the Magic equivalent of Red Deck Wins. And I rolled into my first ever Armory. Armories are their equivalent of Friday Night Magic. I sat down and I expected just to find a card game that I would kind of enjoy, maybe something to scratch that competitive itch. But what I ended up finding was the single greatest competitive card game I've ever played, and the single greatest card game community I have ever had the pleasure of being a part of. Flesh and Blood has completely taken over my TCG brain entirely. I have sold almost all of my Magic stuff outside of those 2 decks you saw at the beginning of the video. And I've just converted it all to Flesh and Blood. The game's got longevity. It's been around for 5 years with year after year growth, so it's not going anywhere anytime soon. The competitive scene is the primary focus. The tagline for the game is play the game, see the world. From what I understand, the creator, James White, was somewhat involved with the Magic Pro Tour during the late 90s and early 2000s, and he wants the game to, the competitive scene I should say, to emulate that kind of feeling of being able to travel all over the world, play against different players from different walks of life and different cultures, everyone being brought together by this single card game. And they are achieving exactly that. Every single week, you can hop on YouTube and find coverage for a live event going on somewhere. There is just infinite content to consume with this game if you're a competitive player. And that is everything I had been looking for in a card game since the era of Modern Horizons took my favorite format out back and put it down. So, rather than end on the sad, somber note of woe is me, Magic is dead, I am sad, let's flip the script. Magic is dead. I was happy that I got to enjoy it during the era I did. It was an incredible time, and it will forever be one of my favorite games. I'm also thankful for the opportunity to move on to a new card game where I have found, I think, an experience that may trump even that of what Magic was for me all those years ago. So back to your upkeep, I'm going to activate Stormstriders and... Wait, no, I don't play Wizard in this game because Wizard is cringe. I play Ninjas because Ninjas are cool. I guess I'll pass the turn to you.